Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. That's right. It's Tuesday night. We're here to talk in Prague. As always, we've got another album, battle royal, album war, whatever you want to call it. Today, we're going to focus on the Netherlands. We got five Dutch albums, probably some albums here a little under the radar for most people. So, for those of you who like the more obscure stuff, this is the episode for you. But before we get started, let me introduce the crew. Mr. Ken Golden is here, the professor of Prague.
Hey,
Chris Canzoneri, the Cans is here. And I got my directions right today, at least in my boxes. Eric
yeah.
Porter is here in the house as well from Four Fusion Friday. What's up, gentlemen? Welcome back from Nashville, Eric.
Great time. Highly recommended.
Yeah, it's a fun place. I haven't been a
It
couple
is.
of years,
Very
but
cool.
I do like Nashville.
Never been.
And Eric actually, and that should be airing tomorrow. Eric went to see Humphreys McGee while he was in Nashville. So he's got a, concert review for all of you who want to hear how the Humphreys show went in Nashville. Tune in tomorrow night. We got a couple concert reviews. Simon Bray from the UK also went to see something the last couple of days. So I got two concert reviews for all of you guys. Those will be airing tomorrow night. So go check those out. So let's talk about the albums for today. I don't have a physical copy for one of them, so I did get the Prezi image. So the first album is the self-titled second album from Kayak from 1974, simply titled Kayak. All right, so there's that one. The other ones I do have, so let me turn the Prezi off now that you've seen that. Is that a Hypnosis cover? Looks like one.
Kind of looks like one.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
might be. I'd have to look that up, but it's a very cool cover. All right, now that I'm gonna go back to normal here. All right, the next one from hold on, let me get all my dates. From 1974, we have the fourth album from Hocus Pocus. No, Focus. Hamburger Concerto. Say Hocus Pocus. Next up, we've got from 1972, the self-titled and only release from Cargo. All right.
You had that, Pete?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I bought that a while ago. That's yeah.
I used to sell it. Yeah, I used to have that one.
From 1971, the second album from Earth and Fire, Song of the Marching Children.
Look at that cover.
Yeah, right. It's blazing artwork on there, right? Amazing.
Arrow.
And from 1971, the second album from this band, it's called To the Highest Bidder, and that is Supersister, and that's the album right there. This is their debut here, and that's it's a two on one, right? To the Highest Bidder. So, I mean, the one thing we could say about these albums, they're all really different from each other. I don't think there's any two that are even remotely alike in this five square pick. So we're going to rank them as we like them. We're going to come up with a winner. I know it's only the four of us, but we'll go through these. Why don't we do our five, four, and three like we did on Hudson Valley Squares last night? Five, four, and three, the first round, and then the second round we'll do our two and our one. So we're going to start with Ken, work our way then to Eric, to Chris, and myself, and then go one more time around. So Ken, you're five and four and three.
Sure. So number five, I don't own. I don't even have it on CD, and I didn't like this album, so I'm not even going to dignify it by holding up the Prezi. And and that's the Kayak album. And I'm never been a huge Kayak fan. Uh, they're okay. I think they got better as they aged. Band was led by Ton Scherpenzeel, very talented keyboard player. Went on to play with Camel. He was a touring keyboardist with Camel. And from my taste, there's a little too much pop in their music. There's there's lots of progressive elements, but these are very concise, like 3 4 minute songs, and for me, they don't really develop. I don't like the singer Max Werner. Um, his voice kind of grates on me. Uh, I they're a
Yeah.
very popular band, and I don't think they're together anymore. I'm selling their farewell tour CD DVD, and I think that was from like 2022.
I was going to say that's fairly
Oh,
recently.
that's
They've been
yeah,
putting out
pretty
stuff
recent.
like a lot, like in the last 10 years or so. That's yeah.
Yeah, and it just there's a commercial aspect to it. I think they got better later on. I know Neil Kernon worked with them on the Merlin album from around '81, which I thought they were kind of stretching their legs a little bit and getting a little more progressive. And then they broke up. Then they reformed in the 2000s, I guess it was. And then they started making more symphonic prog albums. They were female vocals, and they were kind of like they sort of evolved into like Netherlands answer to Glass Hammer. And but man, this first Kayak album for me, sorry guys, that's a real dog. I'm being polite. It was, it was a chore for me to listen to that record. So there was a big gap between that and the next four for me. So, by the way, Khan did make a very, very good solo album, Carnival of the Animals, sort of like his adaptation of Saint-Saëns that he arranged. It's almost all instrumental. Super talented keyboard player. And as I said, if you listen to the Kayak album, there's lots of progressive elements to it. But to me, it's just all sort of wrapped around this sort of poppy veneer, and it didn't work for me. So next was an album that's been in my collection forever, and it's a very good album, but I have to say it didn't really age too well. And that is, well, Earth and Fire, Song of the Marching Children, and that's the Korean copy. This is the alternate. So apparently there was a big hit called the smash hit Memories, which is the first track. And man, you like Mellotron? This album's loaded with Mellotron, and really the first side, short songs, not Memories were not too memorable for me, but the sidelong piece, which takes up all of side two, very, very good piece of symphonic prog. Journey Cogman was the singer. She's very good. She's not amazing, but she's a very good singer. Annie Haslam, she's not. She doesn't go
But
for
there
that.
are similarities. I mean, that's like the first name that comes up.
Yeah, but again, very symphonic. Lots of Tron. It's stupid on the outside, kind of cool on the inside. That's where all the cool stuff is. This is a Korean pressing, and again, it's a good album for me. I've had it forever. It's a solid B plus, A minus. So, am I doing one more?
Yep.
Okay. So the next one, now the last three for me were almost interchangeable. There was a quantum leap, I think, in quality, and the next three for me definitely in the classic category. And this was tough for me because I love this record. Supersister, to the highest bidder. So they were Supersister, very, very talented band. The core 5 albums, right? 5 studio albums, and then they did later albums and some live stuff. They reformed in 2000. I know they played I think it was a Near Fest out in California. And Robert Stipes was the leader of the band, and they really were very heavily influenced by the Canterbury sound. I don't know if it was intentional, if it was something that was being developed at the same time of what was going on. But if you like Caravan, you like Soft Machine, you even get a little bit of like
Hatfield.
little Mothers of Invention quirkiness, a lot of flute, keys, guitar, the whole bit. Supersister, great band. I wouldn't say this is their best album, but it's pretty close to their best album. Maybe Present from Nancy might be their best album. I don't know if there's a real consensus, but that's my number 3, Supersister, to the highest bidder. Great record.
Yeah, I mean, they were contemporaries of that whole Canterbury scene, so it's like kind of like who really were doing it first,
Yeah.
you know?
Sometimes you have to look at the dates almost,
Yeah.
because these things are going on. What's the word? Contemporaneously,
Concurrently.
currently, whatever. But yeah, and
This is 71, so this is what year did the first Hatfield and North album come out?
Well, that was later. What, Hatfield was what, 72,
I think
70?
so. So
But
really, this is like before Hatfield, before National Health, Matching Mole,
yeah,
all those bands, but Soft Machine was before it. But this is like quirkier stuff that came afterwards. So I don't know. It's very, very strange that these guys
yeah.
went onto this sort of sound when, the whole Canterbury scene was not really in full bloom yet.
You know what? One of the things that I picked up, because I hadn't listened to this record in so many years, it was a lot of fun. The thing about this record, which held it back just slightly for me, is that in a sense, it's almost like Supper's Ready. There's a lot of sections to the long pieces, a lot
Yeah.
of sections that are kind of glued together, and it works, but the sections are very different, and that kind of adds to the overall quirkiness of the album.
That's a quality of a lot of that early Caravan stuff, and I think that
Yes.
that's probably the band that they might have been influenced from that scene because Caravan was also right around
Oh
this
yeah.
period as
If
well.
if you're a fan of In the
And
Land of Campaign,
yep,
Waterloo Lily, that kind of, no, yeah, you'd be all over this album.
yeah,
And they didn't make any. Supersister never made a bad album.
no, they're all very good. Yeah, they were
You
really
know,
good.
they're all, if you're into the sound, you really have to own them all.
I like that you brought up Zappa too because there is that little kind of weirdness going on in their
Yeah.
music too,
Yeah,
which
they're like, what was that? Yeah.
yeah.
So that's my number three.
All right, cool. All right, Eric, over to you. Five, four, and three.
All right. Couple things with this. Outside of Focus, I hadn't listened to any of these. So that was the first thing. And George has always kind of got me going to rate your music now. These are all rated pretty high on Rate Your Music. Um, but as with what Ken was saying, I guess I didn't know what to expect jumping into this. I'm going with Earth and Fire at number five. A lot of Tron, like Ken said. I got a very early kind of Psych, kind of that early King Crimson feel on a lot of it. And I thought she was a decent singer. I don't know that I would say that maybe it's a stylistic thing that I enjoyed the vocals, but it wasn't that she was a bad singer. Some of the lyrics, I think like Ebb Tide were a bit cringe worthy for me. Um, but vocally, I thought she was good. Just, I don't know, this album kind of a lot of it was a snoozer for me, like Storm and Thunder. I did like In the Mountains. I think that had a nice like guitar organ section to it that was pretty good, but didn't really seem to develop. Obviously, the title track, the long one, there was some really nice acoustic guitar, but again, I found sometimes there was some lack of development, some to me some boring sections, which you get that synth thing going, and I think it works in that context. Just for me probably not my thing. But again, of these five, these were all new listens, so it was kind of cool to do that. And then we're thinking about obviously we're working out of this pocket of the Netherlands, and that was kind of interesting what you said too, Pete, because there's not a lot of similarities here, which I guess I expected more, thinking that these bands all came from that region, but they're very different.
There
So
doesn't seem to be a Dutch sound per se.
right,
No.
exactly. And then Ken, you kind of summed up Kayak perfectly. That's going to be my number four. Really, really nice piano and keys. Obviously, I knew of Ton from Camel. I think he was there at the same time Kit Watkins was, right? They had both of them touring at that point, I think, kind of later in their, unless he was, I don't remember if he was, how long did he stay with them? Was
I,
he there?
I don't think very long. I don't. The problem with Ton is, and this is what I've heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I was told that the reason Kayak, for example, never played in the United States was Ton had a fear of flying.
Oh,
So I think that his time in Camel might have been limited because of that.
wasn't a fan of touring. Okay, that makes
Well,
sense.
I think he was a fear of
For
flying.
the flying thing. Okay.
They never, like Kayak never played in the United States, I don't think.
And Ken, I think like I said, there was a real pop element. And the interesting thing for me on this album about the vocals was I didn't care for the lead vocals, but I thought when they all came together and harmonized that it kind of elevated the vocals. I thought they sounded good, whether it's two or three people, or I don't know if they're multi-tracking and it was only one singer. But when there were harmonies going on, I was like, oh, this sounds pretty good. But the lead singer didn't really do it for me on this record. Um, again, being that it was a first listen, I definitely went through these a lot. Things like Serenades, I thought had a really nice guitar solo in there. I think that one kind of had a dual guitar solo going on. Um, but again, I think, I can hear why Latimer might have brought him in. He sounds like he's a really good keyboard player, but I think that kind of, as you said, kind of ran through that record was just maybe not enough prog. I just thought it was, a little too poppy. But I really enjoyed the piano playing. I thought that was great. And Ken, I'm going to agree with you again on my number three with Supersister. I am not a fan of the Canterbury vocal style, so that whole whimsical kind of high, I don't even know how to say, I guess whimsical is the best way to put those vocals. Just doesn't do it for me. But on that other side of it, I thought the keyboard playing was fantastic on this. And it was funny because the opening track, for some reason, Apple Music had a single version. I could not get the long version, so I had to go out on YouTube. But you got the flute, great keyboards. The track that's really odd is that energy because you get that what is it? The heavy drums open. This is kind of their epic track, I guess, on this album. Again, struggling with the vocals. There's a drum solo in the middle of which I think we usually agree on a studio album. We don't do drum solos, but the keys were fantastic after that solo, and then you get those little kind of artsy avant moments that goes through it. I thought it was really adventurous, but then the vocals kind of became intolerable towards the end. But the thing that saved this one for me, I thought the keyboards and the flute were really good. And when this band got going, the keyboard playing really stood out. So that's what kind of put this one at number three over the prior two. So that's my 5, 4, 3.
I find with Super Sister, they're one of those bands that doesn't have a guitar player, but you don't really miss the guitar all that much.
Yeah, I thought the keyboards were
Yeah.
really good in this record.
Yeah. All right, cool. Chris, over to you.
Okay. This also was 5 new listens for me. I was hoping for another Finch, but no such luck. Um,
Watch
not
our
that there
last, watch our last episode
yeah,
folks. You'll hear what he's talking about.
I assume everybody has already watched every single episode that's ever been on,
Yeah,
I
come
would
on.
hope so.
like a real fan would. But anyway, um, none of these stacked up to that for me, but there was some good stuff to be had. But Kayak came in last place. This was, like you guys said, a little poppy for me. Um, the opening track, Alibi, has such a strong hook, though, that brant, brant, brant. I mean, that'll stick in your head all day long. And they never equaled that moment for me. It was kind of downhill from there. This could have been any AOR band from the mid 70s for me. They do play around with some, odd time signatures. There's little bits that are a little more challenging, but overall for me, this one was just a big fat no. So it came in last. 4 for me was Super Sister. Um, I like some of the instrumental moments. I like the dueling flute at the beginning of Energy. You don't hear dueling flute very often, and it was really nice to hear that here. I think the vocals are a little bit lip-wristed and silly, like as vocals of that style are. Um, I think the song Higher really put me like I'm watching one of those old black and white man about town videos. The guys were all in suits having cocktails, looking at Peter Seychelles penthouse and cracking some Blue Nun. And I was like, geez, this is just not my thing. A little cheesy. But an R.I.P. Peter Seychelles, the guy died last month. He was 102 years old. Very, very interesting dude. Not in the music world, but check out Peter Seychelles. Big hero of mine. Not just because of the wine. But anyway, yeah, decent album, but just I don't know, didn't hit for me. In my mind, Finch is still there. It's like, come on, I wanted a little more action. But nice album, but it came in fourth. And for number 3 for me, I went with Earth and Fire. Um, The lyrics were a little cheesy. Some of the stuff like Carnival of the Animals. I mean, like Mr. Fox is coming along, and that shit was just almost. Well, it put me off the album first time through. I like, let's put this one aside and come back later, and I'm glad I did. But it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Fairport Convention, but with organ and mellotron. Um, Sandy Denny's a better singer than this lady, but I was still kind of thinking of that. And the reason this came in above Super Sister for me, I was listening to an expanded version with a bonus track called Lost Forever, which is pretty freaking good. I don't know how it didn't make the album. It's pretty heavy. It made me think that they like sort of had an influence on like Lucifer, like a newer band with a
Yeah.
female singer that's, kind of heavy. And so that sort of sealed the deal for me as putting it ahead of Super Sister. If I hadn't heard that track, it probably would have come in fourth, but that's my three because of that.
Yeah, I don't have that remastered edition, but it is available online. I saw it and I listened to both Lost Forever and another song called Invitation. And both of those rock way harder than anything else on the regular album.
Yeah.
Hey, Earth and
That's
Fire
so
had, I think, a better album called Atlantis, which was the album that came afterwards. Um, oh, look who's here.
Yeah, better late than never.
Look at that smiling face.
Hello.
What's up, Lewis?
Sorry I'm late. I thought it was 6:45.
Yeah, then you'd really be late.
Time
No,
difference.
I'm in Chicago time,
No,
so my bad.
that's okay.
Those formulas on the whiteboard, that's him calculating the time zones.
Oh no, this is this thing over here, there. It's how you can, from the Schrodinger equation, get the fluid dynamic equations.
Uh,
I had students today that wanted to know that. And the rest is just the usual Fourier series and harmonic theory and all the other stuff.
Yeah, alrighty. Well, you got here just in time for your turn. So we're doing your number five, your number four, and your number three.
Number 5, number 4, number 3 for these albums. Okay. Once again, I apologize to everybody. I just showed up. As you can see, my hair is brushed and I'm ready to go.
There you go. That's all right. On the Hudson Valley Squares last night, Steve Keeler did the exact same thing.
Well,
He showed up about like 20 minutes into it, right in time for his turn. I was like, look at that.
did Stephen grow a beard?
He's got a goatee. It's like,
He looked pretty good.
yeah. In all the years I know Steve, I mean, he had a mustache ages ago, but I've never seen him with a goatee. I was like, holy cow, Steve, that looks pretty good. He's all white.
That's working for him.
Yeah. Not too shabby. Anyway, sorry, Luce.
all right, no, that's all good. I just wanted to preemptively say that, with the exception of one, all these albums were new for me, and all these bands were new for me.
See, that's
So I really enjoyed the assignment because it forced me to hear stuff that I hadn't really heard. And my number 1 and 2 are very clear, and my number 5. The 4 and 3, I'm not sure. So my number 5 is very easily Earth and Fire. Songs of the Marching, whatever, Children.
children. Yep.
Yeah. Come on, that is just so not for me. It's not even funny. It's every cliche of bad prog you can think of. I can almost see the little, the leprechauns dancing. It's just not good. It's just not good at all. It's terrible. Fucking terrible. So that album I'm not happy I heard. Just say that. So that's a very easy number 5. Fuck that. The less we talk about it, the better.
Not even the Mellotron could sway you, huh?
There are so many other good albums with Mellotron. Why am I going to listen to a shitty album with Mellotron? I mean, no offense to the Dutch. I love the Netherlands and I have lots of good Dutch friends, but I didn't know about this band. I am much more familiar with more modern Dutch bands. So this was kind of interesting for me. And yeah, this is terrible. So that's a number 5, easy. No problem. Now, my number 4 and number 3, I'm still debating. And this is the reason. One of these albums is a very good album, but I just don't think of it as a prog album. To me, it's more like a, a hard rock psychedelic kind of album. And the other one has more of what I would consider prog, has some really good things, but then it has some really bad ones. So I'm not really sure how to do it. I'm still debating.
Lewis, the one with more guitar should go higher.
Yes.
Um,
I'll call you on that one.
so, I just don't know, but I think just based on on the enjoyment I got from it, right? Like just which of the two am I more likely to reach for again at some point in time? I think I have to give the number 4 to Kayak. It's just it has some good things, but it also has a lot of lulls for me.
I'm waiting to hear the good things.
Well, the it's well put together. It has nice instrumental passages. The vocals are a little bit pitchy. And that to me, I mean, again, vocals are always very subjective. One man's treasure is another one's trash. So, but and again, had I grown up listening to these records, I may have a very different opinion about it, right? I now have a lot of years of listening to a lot of stuff, and then they enter the matrix with all that other background, right? So it's not really, it's not the same thing. The Cargo album will be my number 3. And I think the Cargo album was a surprise. At first, I thought, what the fuck? This is not prog. This is just like, it just has long, windy guitar solos. But then the more I heard it, the more I realized there was like a twin guitar attack happening. And it's very well put together, I have to say. So, and the vocalist does a much better job overall. So I think as far as a record that I could easily listen to again and again, that would be the Cargo. I doubt them ever. I mean, for sure I'm not going to buy the Kayak, and I doubt I'm ever going to hear it again. And the other unnameable one has already been sent into the pasture for the zero fucks given. So yeah, my 3 is Cargo, the 1972. Now I also realized that the files that we generously got to hear about these records included a lot of stuff of a previous incarnation of the band that was called September, I think.
Yeah.
So the actual Cargo album just has 4 songs.
Right.
2 long ones and those are pretty good. And none of the other stuff is bad, but I think that if you just focus on the actual Cargo album, it's pretty solid. So that'll be my 5, 4, and 3. I don't want to get too deep into why I don't like them because I may cause an international incident, and we already are getting enough bad publicity just for being American. So let's just not go there, right?
All right, so I will say I like all 5 of these albums to varying degrees. My number 5, I actually thought was going to place much higher for me, but I hadn't listened to it in a long time. And then when I re-listened to it over the last couple of weeks, I was kind of like, yeah, this isn't really as good as I remember. I still like it, but it clearly was my number 5, and that's Earth and Fire. I always remember, as Ken so eloquently stated earlier, that it's a great Mellotron album, and it is. I just don't know if there's a hell of a lot more besides that. I'm kind of finding that the big title track is really good. There's some good guitar playing on there. I like when there's lots of Mellotron and Hammond and there's harpsichord on here. And I think the singer, what's her name again? Journey Cargerman. She's kind of like it's like she's trying to do this Annie Haslam thing, but not quite as good. Although this album came out before Annie made it a little bit bigger in Renaissance, so it's who was copying who there, I don't know. But I think there's some Carnival of the Animals is kind of silly, but it's kind of charming. I like Ebb Tide. I think that's pretty good. Storm and Thunder, just it's keyboards everywhere on there. There's some good guitar solos on there. There's some nice classical guitar on the big epic title track. I like moments of it. I don't know as an album as a whole if it really holds up all that well, like I used to think it did. But I can mention I have a few of their others, and I think there might be 1 or 2 in the catalog that might be a little stronger than this one. Depends on what you like. But like I said, it's a good Mellotron album. There's a lot of good Hammond on here, some nice stuff on here. I just don't think it's as really as good as I used to think it was. So that's a number 5 for me. Number 4, and I showed it earlier. I'm gonna go with the Kayak. I don't mind this album too
We're
much.
coordinating again, you and me, Pete.
Yeah.
Cool.
Uh, it's not a bad album for what it is. It's their second album. I think Alibi is an enjoyable kind of like melodic pop rock prog type of thing. Vocals pretty good. You got the swirling keyboards, tasty guitars. To me, this sounds like a much more commercial and less proggy Yes. The keyboards are great. I think Wintertime is got some nice Mellotron. Mountain Too Rough, more Mellotron on there. Nice piano. Eric pointed out the piano. I think there's great piano. I think Cher Penzel, or however he says his name, Todd.
Um,
Yeah, Ton, right? I was like, why is his name Ton? Is it not Tom or Todd? But the Dutch they have different names.
Another language.
Yeah, right. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Serenades is really good. That's kind of quirky. That's got a nice little pop feel to it, or prog feel to it. I think probably the most proggy song on here is Trust in the Machines, which has certain
Yeah.
parts of the arrangement that remind me of Gentle Giant a little bit. And it's probably my favorite track here. I don't think it's a bad album for what it is. But again, to me, Kayak, that's the type of band they are. So I don't really expect that they're this big, grand, progressive rock band. They dabble in prog. They're more of like a straightforward pop band, and that's kind of their thing.
Would you agree that that's the weakness mainly, precisely that they unlike Yes, that had the pop songs that John Anderson brought, and then all the other guys wove this incredible tapestry for that music to really shine.
Yeah.
Here, it's all very patchwork. It doesn't really flow to me.
Yeah.
I don't hear it.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's just, but I don't really know what they're trying to be. And I guess that's been my issue with this band all throughout their career. It's like they want to be known as a prog band, but really, are they? I don't know. But they're, like Ken said, they're very popular. So, what do I know? Right?
I got prog here as
Yeah,
usual.
yeah, I guess. My number 3, I'm gonna go with Hamburger Concerto by Focus.
Oh wow.
Fourth album. Really good album. I like other albums a little bit better, but I still think this is really strong. Right off the bat in Delete Musique, you got some really nice classical guitar from Jan Ackerman. I mean, what a guitar player he is. Harem Scarum is good rocker, strong organ, piano, nice guitar. Birth is very cool track. You got harpsichord, then all of a sudden flute and sizzling like rock guitar solos. And the concerto itself is great. I mean, they've just got this band has this way of like combining like classical motifs with like rock and blues, and then you get the organ in there, there's yodeling in there, there's flute, there's mellotron, all sorts of good stuff. I find that the albums that came before this, I think, are a little stronger compositionally, but still, this is really good. And I think to me, it just goes to show the strength that I feel for my number 1 and 2 picks. But it's very good, and I would have no issue if someone were to say this is the best of the lot here. I think it's quite good. So yeah, that's my 5, 4, and 3, and we'll turn it back to Ken.
I just have one comment before we go back to Ken. Going back to the Cargo album, because I kept thinking about it. It was like a first impression thing as I was listening to it. Does anybody else believe there's a possibility that whoever, I forget the name of the guy, the Tom Schultz, the Boston guy, the album Boston.
Yeah.
Tom
Do
Schultz.
you think? Yeah. Do you think? Is there any possibility that the guy that sang on that first Boston album listened to this record?
I would highly doubt it, but you never know.
Dude, I mean, go back and listen to it with that in mind. Some of these vocal lines are almost they're the same, right?
And it's like 3, 4 years before then. So
that's why I'm thinking that I was very surprised by that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a
Huh, I didn't think of
Boston
it that
fan,
way.
but it surprised me. I forgot to mention that one was my turn.
now I have to go
reminded-
re-listen again and think about that.
Think of that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was weird. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
Am I doing the last 2?
Last 2, yep.
So my number 2, and by the way, I just flipped these like this afternoon. So my number 2 is Focus Hamburger Concerto. So, by the way, this British pressing that I recently acquired, very, very good sound. Mike Vernon produced it. Really good sounding album. Um, I don't listen to Focus very much for reasons I can't explain, but whenever I listen to Focus, I really like them a lot. And I love Moving Waves, Focus 2, depending on when you bought it, where you bought it, same album. This is, to me, is like an A minus. It's an excellent album. The problem is, if there's a problem, is that it's kind of a little bit derivative of Moving Waves. So, he throws the yodeling in. It's almost gratuitous. It's like he's expected to yodel, so he tosses it in. The other thing is, when I say he, Ties Van Leer, who is the keyboardist and flautist. And, the two key guys in the band are Ties Van Leer and Jan Ackerman, the guitar player. And Ackerman is a monster. He's an extraordinary guitarist and very tasteful and just great. This, to me, the way I listen to it, and I listen to it a lot, like over the weekend, it's more of a Ties Van Leer oriented album. There's some really great Ackerman moments, but Van Leer really dominates the album. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But again, as you listen to it, to me, I'm constantly being reminded of like Moving Waves. So like Moving Waves had the Sidelong Piece Eruption, and this has the Hamburger Concerto. Like the overall construction of the album is the same. You got the shorter pieces on the first side, and then you have the big suite that takes up the second side. Totally solid album. And if this is somebody's number one album, I wouldn't tell you were crazy. It's good. If putting a focus on Focus, I think it makes me realize how good Moving Waves is. To me, that's their masterpiece. And that to me is like an A+ album. And by the way, Focus 3, the double, not a bad album.
It's very good too. Yeah.
That's a great record. So, and it's funny because I went over to my collection this afternoon. I'm like, holy shit, I have a lot of Focus albums. I didn't realize how many I actually didn't have this. And then when you announced that we were doing this, I bought it from I don't remember where I came in from somebody in Europe, and nice copy. Anyway, I highly recommend it. And my number one, I wish I owned an original copy of this, is the Cargo album. For me, this album is brilliant, and it's so far removed from anything else we're talking about. This was it was released, recorded in 1972. These guys, they channel Wishbone Ash, and to
Argus,
me,
right? Argus era.
Yeah,
Argus.
like Argus, Pilgrimage.
Yeah.
You hear all that stuff, and even the Allmans. You get it's the twin guitar attack. These guys do it so well with such precision. The second track, Cross Talking. So it's 4 tracks on the album. There are vocals on the album, but there's not a lot of vocals on the album. And these guys, they get the vocals out of the way and they shut up and they play. And man, Cross Talking, that second track, 8.5 minutes. It's to listen to what these guys are doing, the intertwining guitars. It's mesmerizing for me. And you got that Summer Fair, the 15.5 minute closer. Again, it's like this is just a blazing guitar album. Vocals are fine. He doesn't light my world on fire, but totally fine. But the two brothers who are playing guitar, these guys rip. And I also have to point out this is a reissue because I can't afford an original copy of this album is about $1,000, and this was done by pseudonym. And many years ago, this version's out of print. I don't know if there's a legit current version. This was taken from the original master tapes. Comes with a second album with 4 demo tracks, 2 of which were tracks which were not on the album, and they're really good too. So I think that, Pete, I think they're different than what do you have on the CD?
I got like 12 tracks on here.
Oh, okay.
It includes the
That's all the
1971.
September stuff, right?
Yeah, it's all the 1971 demo stuff as the with the as the other band name.
Four tracks I got here are Strings on Fire, which is almost 8 minutes. Sail Inside, which is a demo version of from the album. Summer Fair, which is on the album, and then Last Time I Saw Dennis for 4.5 minutes. Or do you have any of those tracks?
Yeah. Well, I got Lydia Purple, Yelly Rose, If Mr. Right Comes Along, Little Sister, Walk On By, Run Away, One More Change.
I'm ashamed that this album didn't come out in the U.S. and nothing ever happened with these guys. Came out on Harvest in the Netherlands, and like I said, very very expensive. But this sounds pretty good, and I got to tell you, every time I go back to this record, I pull it off the shelf every once in a while, listen to the CD every once in a while. Man, the guitars, they just blow me away. Yeah, yeah. Here they give it's a little the vinyl's different, and but it's also quite nice. And anyway, that's my number one is Cargo. Was my number two, became my number one. For me personally, an A+ album.
There you go. Wow. All right.
Do you get, Ken, the impression that these guys just recorded live?
Yeah, kind of like the yeah.
Because it's not very I mean, some of these
wrong?
to me, they sound a little bit milk, like in Crosstalk, the little drum bass intro.
Right.
That goes on for a bit long, right?
Yeah,
And there's nothing wrong with it, but because this is what you might expect at a show.
yeah. This album was recorded in 2 days.
Yeah. So,
Oh, and yeah, but like I said, you could tell these guys they were well rehearsed.
yeah.
You know. So yeah,
Doesn't sound like Overdub City.
no,
Not at all.
these two guitar players, man, they're locked in. And like I said, I have a real admiration for early Wishbone Ash. I love Argus. I love basically the first three Wishbone Ash albums to me are essential, especially there and more progressive than anybody ever gave them credit for. I hear a lot of early Yes in Wishbone Ash in terms of the compositionally, and those albums I think are great, and I think that these guys kind of channeled that, and they even channeled Dickie Betts and Dwayne Allman. I hear that too. Obviously, there's no organ or anything like that, but it's the interlocking guitars and the two guys playing off one another and taking it off into space. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant record.
All right, Eric. What do you got for your top two?
So my number two is The Dilemma. This was the only band I really had listened to of the five, and it's Focus, Hamburger Concerto. My problem with Focus is musically, I love them, but no yodeling, no whistling, no falsettos. That just drives me nuts. And to me, it ruins the music. I like the music. I won't say I love it. I really like their music. I do think Ackerman's fantastic. I can't listen to this guy. I just can't. But to me, the music was superior to the prior three I had. So I felt like Focus had to go at number two. And like I said, when he gets done with whatever he's doing there and his vocalizations and all that stuff, the music really is good. So if I could get a copy of this and have the vocals removed, I think I'd be much happier with Focus than I am. But that will be my number two. And Cargo, thank you God that we had some real guitar on this. I mean, I got to this and I kind of felt the same way. I'm like, God, this doesn't fit. It's not proggy. And maybe I've got to go back and listen to it a little more based on what Luis said. Now, the guitar, the dual guitar stuff, they have to work on that. I mean, that is not easy to play these long extended solos and have these dual guitar lines going. But I love the energy on this. The rawness doesn't bother me a bit because I think it kind of elevates the energy level. I really enjoyed this one. And of the four or of the five, this would be the only one I would feel like I want to own. The other ones I've heard, they're okay. Would really care to buy them, but this one, although after hearing Ken talk about $1,000 pressing, that probably won't happen. But I want to remember this one
You can
because I
find
do
this.
want
You
to
can
go
find
back
this
and
out there. You can find this out in the
are
wild.
there? Okay.
Yep.
But to me, this was a breath of fresh air from the other four that we listened to. No fluff, no, as Lewis said, no leprechauns dancing around. This was just in your face. And Ken, you said it, I think. I mean, you might get 2 minutes of singing, and then all of a sudden they're just gone.
Yeah.
So to me, this was completely a breath of fresh air. Really enjoyed this. Never had heard of this band even prior to us discussing. So Cargo is going to be number one for me.
All right. Very cool. Chris, how about you?
Okay. Excuse me. I am in hard agreement with both of you guys. Um, my number two is Hamburger Concerto. Uh, I do think this is really the only truly ambitious project out of all these records, or at least the one that came close to living up to its ambition. There's a nice mixture of elements on here. The yodeling is fucking bullshit. Birth is a killer song. The title track, I would love the title track, except he keeps going through this little riff at the end of each passage, this like which I fucking fucked that up. Doesn't sound anything like that, but he repeats it over and over. At the end of every phrase, he drops this little ender to the segment, and it's just you did that 20 times. Stop. It's like you could have made the song 8 minutes instead of however long what is it, 20 minutes long?
Yeah.
You could have left that part out and it still would have been interesting. And that kept you from being my number one. And I know that, they're disappointed now. Bad move. But excellent album. I really did like it. And it could have been number one, except Cargo was so much goddamn fun to listen to that it had to take the top spot. I agree. I was hearing Allman Brothers and Wishbone Ash, and even in some of the softer parts, I was hearing like "I'm Your Captain" type Grand Funk Railroad sort of stuff.
Grand Funk, that's right.
You
Grand
know,
Funk. Yep.
in that summer picnic or
Summer
summer
Fell
fair
or something.
song. Yeah,
Yep.
and honestly, I thought in crosstalking that I heard like four guitar parts going, but they may have been cutting over top of each other so deftly that it made me think that, maybe three were happening at the same time or something. But just a killer album, great. And I agree with Eric. I would want to own this one, and I don't think I would care about buying the other four. But Cargo, number one.
All right. Argo takes the lead here. Lewis, what do you got?
All right. So my number two is going to be Supersister, To the Highest Bidder. That was a very unusual thing for me. I never expected to hear a sort of Canterbury album from Holland, or Canterbury-ish. I mean, it's very whimsical, but at the same time, it's also very clever. It's very well put together. That very opening track, "A Girl Called You," I think is the name of it. That's a great piece of music. So, you know, and the whole album flows very, very well. I don't think there's any sequencing problems. I think that it's just a joy to hear from start to end. And I had never heard of that band. I never even heard of their existence. I hadn't heard a single note by them. And that was a very pleasant discovery.
You would like their other albums as well, Louis.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to look into them because this was really nice. But the heart, I've always been a Focus fan. I'm not going to sit here and defend the yodeling in the same way that I'm not going to sit here and defend Gentle Giant to people that say they're garbage, because why bother? All I can say is that, as in life, you have to take the good with the bad. And what makes Focus is a little bit of that silliness. That's who they are. That's what they do, right? So, yes, and that's part of what I think makes this band so special to me is the combination of the crazy chops and the organ and the flute and the guitar. And all the other guys are very capable too, but of course these two dudes take center stage with the zaniness, with the silliness. I mean, even the title, Hamburger Concerto, right? is that a play on the Hamburg Concerto? That, some of these things were, because there are some traditional pieces at the beginning of each side of the LP that are um, traditional arrangements. So they just grab classical stuff and they just sort of tweaked it. And I just love that record. To me, um, it just the fact that it is like moving waves is not really a problem to me because sonically, I mean, structurally, you can make the argument as Ken did, and he's correct. But sonically, I think they're sufficiently different. I don't think that they really quote um, that album. They just do they just do what they do, and then they, as with a lot of these bands, Jethro Tull did this a lot. They're playing something really complicated, and then all of a sudden they have to make a joke. Somebody has to do an armpit fart or something. There has to be something to sort of make you think they don't take themselves so seriously. But in reality, you can't make a record like that if you don't take it seriously. So it's kind of a disingenuous thing, but I love that record. Hamburger Concerto, it was I knew going into it that unless I was really blown away by something else, that was going to be my number one because I've known it for a long time. I've loved it, and I love that record. So yeah.
Isn't it interesting that when a band like Focus throws a little humorous thing in there, it's genius. But when ELP does it, they're mental midgets.
Well, the thing about it is that not everybody is fucking funny, Ken.
Well,
I mean, look, let's put it like this. The Focus never take themselves as seriously as ELP did.
well, that's true. Without question, that is.
So then there is a much bigger contrast
Yeah.
between Benny the Bouncer or whatever and Carnival 9.
Well, that's a good point. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So,
All right. My number two is the Supersister. I really like this band. It's funny because I remember like when I first decided like God, probably 25, 30 years ago that I was going to investigate the music of this band. I didn't really care for them too much. But as you get older, you change a little bit. And I like this kind of whimsical, quirky, Canterbury-ish prog with no guitar, right? Again, there's got to be some special stuff going on to grab me if there's no guitar. Because a lot of times, like Eric, no guitar, I'm kind of like, jazz is one thing, but like in prog, I'm like, gotta have some guitar. But man, keyboards, the flutes, the really nice rhythms all over the place. I love A Girl Named You, really good. I like the big epic track, Energy Out of the Future is good. I like when they throw in the fuzz bass. And then
yeah.
like when there's fuzz on like in the what is it? The big I guess it's on Energy, right? When there's fuzz
Yeah.
and it's in the organ, sounds just like Caravan from the Land of the Big Long for Richard song, right? It's just like very, very fun stuff. To me, this is like a long lost Caravan album from the Netherlands, right? Very, very cool. I like it a lot. It's my number two. And my number one is the Cargo. Yeah. So I bought this a number of years ago. I don't remember when this reissue came out, but I saw this. You know how sometimes like you go on the internet and you're watching things on YouTube and you get recommendations, or you're like you're looking to explore like more obscure music from certain styles of music, and you go onto these various websites and they have like all this shit listed, or the lists. We all love our lists, right? And I remember seeing this listed somewhere, and I'm like, I never heard of Cargo. It's like heavy prog, lots of guitar, and I was like, all right. So I went and found the CD, I bought it. Maybe I listened to a little bit of it, and I was like, this is really good, really, really, really good. And I have been a big fan of this album for a long time. That's why when Ken brought it up when we were talking about putting together a list of albums for this, I was like, wow, you know this one too? It's really good. Yeah, I totally get some early Wishbone Ash stuff here, a little bit of Allman Brothers, but I also get like, especially on like cross-talking. There's some kind of like funky Hendrixy stuff going on there, which I really like a lot. And then like on that song Finding Out, which is like one of the shorter pieces on here, I get like, that first Captain Beyond album, that kind of like complex mix of blues and hard rock and funk. And just really, really good. Summer Fair is terrific. There's just, terrific guitar solos every which way you turn on here. I think it's a really good album, and like I said, if you can track down the CD, which has all of the other tracks from when they were called September, You got like the whole picture of the history of this band, just really good. And both guitar players just totally kill on here. Yeah, it's, maybe it's more psychedelic hard rock, but there's enough prog on here, I think. If you're going to call like early Wishbone Ash prog, right?
I do.
But what's really cool about including this in with this list of albums, like we talked about, is every one of these albums is completely different from the next. None of these albums sound at all alike the other. And I think that's what's really cool about having something like this and having something like Earth and Fire and something like the Supersister and so on and so forth. They're all really different from each other. So yeah, that's my pick for number one. And our winner is Cargo. So let me go through the points. So Cargo wins first place here with 23 points. Focus hot on the heels with 20 points due to a one first place vote and three second place votes. We've got Super Sister in third place with 16, and Kayak and Earth and Fire both tie for last with 8 points. So
It would have been interesting if we included Scope. Scope would have gone.
yeah. It's funny, I think when we were originally talking about doing this, we thought maybe of throwing the other band in here that Chris was talking about at the beginning.
Finch.
Yes, throwing Finch in here. I don't know how fair that would have been. Well, it would have been a good battle between Cargo and Finch, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Like if we let's say we left Kayak or Earth and Fire out and put Finch in there, because all three of those Finch albums are pretty damn good. We may have already talked about the best one, when we did the previous episode from '75, but whatever. So there you have it, everybody. Our Dutch Battle Royal has ended. Cargo's the winner. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, no, this should be the winner, right? Because I think we're going to get a lot of folks who probably haven't heard some of these other albums, and that's the only one they know. But seriously, the whole point of doing stuff like this is so you guys go and investigate some of these other albums. Like I said, we've had a bunch of guys here on the panel, some of these albums, first time hearing them in preparation for this episode. So it's always fun exploring new music, especially some of the stuff from the 70s. Always fun. So visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. We are going, I don't know what it is yet because we still have to figure it out, but we are going to return to List Mania for our next episode because we know how much everybody loves the lists. So we're going to, whether it be a year or whatever, or we'll figure it out and everybody's going to come with their own list because we know that our viewers on this channel love anything to do with lists. So that'll be coming up on the next episode here in the Prog Seat. So till then, this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. I already said all that. Anyway, all the stuff is down below, links and things like that. I'm repeating myself. I repeat myself when I'm stressed. I repeat myself. Anyway, for Ken Golden, Eric Porter, the Cans, Chris Canzaneri, and Luis Nasser, I'm Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon here on In the Prog Seat. Have a good one. List them down, rank them as you like them down below, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers.